reporting on environmental and sustainable development.
With the theme of this year's conference being Invest in Land and Ecosystem Restoration as a means to achieve biodiversity, 2 key biodiversity protocols shall be discussed.
This is again under the umbrella of...
And the convention has 2 protocols. One protocol relates to what we call biosafety. Looking at how the movement of genetic materials would affect not only human health and human well-being, but also the health and status of other species. So that we call it the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. The second protocol is the Nagoya Protocol on access and benefit sharing. Simply put as ABS, it's been popularly known as ABS.
Kenya, Rwanda, Eritrea.
Further to this, the place of the ecosystem in achieving biodiversity shall also be given preeminence due to the economic potential it bears.
Climate change seems to be like the overriding agenda, but we often forget that biodiversity is actually even more critical. It is actually forming the foundation, and for Africa, it's also the foundation to adapt to impacts of climate change. We talk about rainfall and droughts, floods and droughts as some of the impacts of climate change, and you realize that ecosystems like forests can help to regulate rainfall. And if there's a regulation of rainfall, then the impacts that come from drought are less negative, or the reach of these impacts is less when they are functioning ecosystems.
Another interesting area that will be discussed at the conference is bushmeat. While one school of thought argues that indigenous communities need bushmeat for their nutritional values, others argue that if legalized, the demand will outweigh the supply, thus endangering the species.
It has been realized that campaigns and strategies and action plans in the past have demonized bushmeat to the extent that even the communities that traditionally rely on bushmeat for their nutritional values are prevented from accessing bushmeat. So now, one of the agenda items is to discuss how do we enable indigenous communities and local communities to continue benefiting from bushmeat for their food and nutritional requirements, but at the same time ensuring that this can be sustainable in the long run, and then addressing the vices that are related to bushmeat, because bushmeat becomes complicated when it becomes a commercialized trade. Bushmeat becomes complicated when you introduce illegality, because there's no control system or policy, laws and regulations to control it. So that is where it becomes a problem. Then the demand for bushmeat outstrips the supply because it's also dependent on poaching rather than sustainable means of harvesting of bushmeat from wild species.
While climate change is a real threat the world is grappling with, only 1% of national budgets across the continent are set aside for the Ministry of Environment. The conference hopes to bring such issues to light and push for more allocations towards environmental conservation and protection.
The Association on Environment